Welcome to Million Dollar Grit, the podcast that dives deep into the world of entrepreneurship where tenacity meets strategy and dreams meet reality. My name is Julie, and I explore the raw, often overlooked truths of what it takes to succeed in business and in life. It's not just about the glossy success stories, it's about the grit it takes to get there. Hey everyone, this is Julie. Welcome back to Million Dollar Grit. Today we're talking about what makes people fast executors. Why do some people take action quickly and some people don't? And the obvious reason is there are some people that are perfectionists and some people that are not. But I want to dig a lot deeper. And this is in part because I was having a conversation with a client and she was marveling at how fast I had taken action on an idea that I had. And there are several people in my mastermind that are very fast action takers, and they are not perfectionists, so they're able to do that. But let's dig deeper. Fast execution in somebody isn't always just about taking action. I think what people who are fast do is that they are able to ignore a lot of other inputs. And if you struggle with taking action quickly, it could be that your brain isn't as good at ignoring things. And that should be a little bit of a relief to you because the people who move faster are not braver, they're not more energetic. They've just learned how to ignore 95% of the problems in front of them so that they can act on the one that's actually viable, okay? And ignoring, I've talked about this in the past, ignoring and action are basically two halves of the same skill. Most people focus on taking action, right? Or they want to learn how to take action. But almost nobody is teaching how to ignore. And it's really interesting because not only did I have a conversation with a client about this fast action taking, but I'm also in the middle of working on an FG Funnels beginners class and teaching people how to build from scratch. And in that class, I have to ignore so many details because if I front load the class with details, nobody's going to get anywhere. But it's really interesting watching the chat because there are people in the chat that don't know how to ignore details. And so they are constantly bringing them up in the chat. But what about this? But what about this? But what about this? And I feel kind of rude ignoring them. But I also know that if I stop to answer every question, we won't get to the finish line. Okay? That's sort of my aha. Let's talk about the operating system for fast action taking. The action part is doing the next thing that's right in front of you. If you're listening to this podcast, if you're listening to this podcast right now and you are at your desk or somewhere where you have a to-do list, look at what is the next thing you're supposed to do. And have you done it yet? And the ignoring part is refusing to entertain the other 17 items on your list at the same time. Okay. I had this client, we'll just call her Susie. And she was like, hey, I need to learn how to take action quickly. She had watched as I came back from the mastermind. I realized that there was a lot of energy and momentum from the group with regard to my AI classes. I decided, you know what? I want to host more of these. I want to do more of this in-person work. I threw out a calendar. I invited people to my home. And within 2 or 3 days, I had 4 workshops full of people coming to my AI in Sheep. By the way, they're all sold out if you're listening to this, but I do have an online version May 26th and 27th, if you want to DM me on Instagram. And she watched this and she was like, this is incredible. How do you take action? I would need 6 to 8 business months to put together an offer to invite people into my house for a 2-day workshop. How do you make things happen? And you might think, oh, well, your house is ready for guests. I assure you, while it's clean and plenty of people can fit, it's not professionally decorated or professionally landscaped. someone who can't ignore those details would probably stop and say, I can't have someone here until, and then insert those details, right? Now, I responded to her, and I'm actually going to tell you what I said to her because I think that this will make ignoring those details easier and therefore make it easier to take action. What I said to her was this: I think when it comes to fast execution, I knew there was a time limit on the FOMO. I knew that people had just seen me put on an event. I knew that I had to capitalize on that energy, and that was part of it. But this is the actual biggest reason why it worked. It's because I trust the future version of myself to be able to figure out the details. So even though I know I need a new couch in the living room, and I know that my gardens need work, and I'm not quite sure how I'm going to manage all different skill levels in the room, I trust the future version of myself to figure that out when that becomes the next thing. All I had to worry about in that moment was filling the room. Once that problem is solved, I can move on to the next thing. One thing that for me is good or bad is that I'm not good at trying to solve multiple problems at once. I'm always isolating what is the single problem in front of me that I can take action on. And I want to name the principle that I'm talking about with this action and ignoring. The trusting the future version of yourself is what allows you to ignore all the details. That's the ignoring skill of saying, okay, I see these details. I see all these other things that I'm supposed to think about or do, but I'm going to ignore them and I'm going to focus on whatever is in front of me. That is the action skill. So if you have the ignoring skill and the action skill, that's where you get the speed, that speed of execution, that fast action taking that really is a hallmark of successful people. Okay. I had a comment in my messenger, and she was on the call yesterday. And again, I told you I'm teaching this FG Funnels beginner class, and there are 1,000 details, and I'm trying to get people to finish a funnel in 1 hour, which means I have to ignore about 98% of all of those details. And people were having trouble ignoring them, but I was kind of moving the train forward, if you will. Well, I told everyone that one of the reasons why people take so long to learn tech is because they're actually doing two things at once. They're trying to learn tech and build their business. And there is a lot of mindset trash and issues that come up when you're trying to build a business, right? Will my offer sell? Will I make money? All this kind of stuff. And then you're also trying to learn tech. So you're sitting there building a sales page and you're like trying to learn all the details and all the elements and what everything does, but you're also worrying about the offer. I said, we're not going to worry about that. We're going to build a fake business. People liked it. They thought it was funny. I was like, this is called Houseplant Hospice. We're going to be a therapist for people who kill their plants. And we were building this fake business. And I promised them that this would be better because it would allow them to ignore all of the fears and worries about their actual business. And they'll actually learn the tech, which is the problem that we need to solve so that they can do other things. Okay, back to this message in Messenger. She said, you are a friggin' genius, which I appreciate it. I'm not a genius, but I am a good teacher. She said, it happened again. I was working through the replay of the FG Funnels day one. I thought I would be a smarty pants and I would try to do it, but I would use my real business and follow the prompts. And I immediately found myself in decision fatigue and overwhelm. I'm embarrassed to tell you how long it took me to recognize this pattern, but then I recognized it and I stopped. And I went back to the goal of learning FG Funnels and using your prepared business and business copy. Thank you. She didn't break because the work was hard. She broke because she stopped ignoring. She knew that the problem in front of her was, I have to learn this tech. But she added a second problem, which was all of her real business, which is notoriously hard to ignore because we're super attached to our business. She added that problem on top of it, which then slowed her down. That decision fatigue and overwhelm are signals. They are signals and symptoms that ignoring is not online. You're not ignoring correctly, okay? And the fix actually wasn't grit. Okay? It wasn't like pushing through and making decisions about her business. And honestly, I think that's underrated advice, because perfectionists sometimes will look at me and be like, "Oh, well, you're just not doing things that are good. You're forgetting details, and I don't feel comfortable launching without those details in place." And I'm not asking not to be detailed. I'm just saying that the details have an order, and they can't overtake the order of, hey, I need to make money. So the actual fix was going back to ignoring for her, this student, back to the prepared copy, learning the tech, because once she has the tech, then she can tackle the problem of, well, what is my offer and is it going to sell? And she doesn't have to also be learning the tech at the same time. And that's what ignoring looks like when you do it on purpose and you catch yourself and you can kind of put that problem down. Ignoring is not denial. It's not, I'll never deal with this. Ignoring is temporally bounded. I'm not dealing with this yet. Future me will. And in the class yesterday with FG Funnels, there was a moment in the training where I had the order form and it said $99, but they knew that we were building something that was $47. And people kept saying in the chat, but it says $99, it says $99. It wasn't that I wasn't going to solve that problem. I was, but I was going to schedule it after I showed them, steps 1, 2, and 3. So you don't pretend that the other problems don't exist. You don't not solve the other problems, but you trust yourself to come back to them. You trust the future version of yourself so that you can ignore it and give yourself that permission. All right, let's talk about how to apply this. What is the one thing in front of you right now? What is that thing? And if you don't know what that thing is, there's information there, right? You might need a coach to help you. You might need someone to really drill that down for you. This is not something that you have to do alone. And for me, with my AI and Sheep workshops, it was fill the room. That's what I had to focus on. I didn't have to really worry about anything else. And then once you know what's in front of you, you can ask yourself, what am I trying to solve too early? What are all the questions? And you can go ahead and write those questions down if you're afraid that you're going to forget them. What are you worried about? But then you want to ask yourself, do I trust my future self to figure that out later? And if the answer is yes, permission to ignore. If the answer is no, that's the real work. That you have a self-trust problem. And I would argue that a lot of people have a self-trust problem. And the funny thing is, the way out of this problem is to get reps of doing it, failing, falling down, and fixing it, and realizing, wow, I'm actually capable of this, okay? And I really appreciate my client who sent me that message, and I really appreciate all the students in the FG Funnels community who trusted me to take them on a journey yesterday. We're doing that all week. By the way, if you're listening and you're an FG Funnels customer, you can go to the Funnel Gorgeous YouTube channel and you can see day 1. We're going to put all 5 days up. I really want people to be able to take action and get things off the ground. So you can go check that out. If you need a coach that is good at action and ignoring both, please reach out to me on Instagram. I hope you guys have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon. And there you have it, folks. Another dose of $1 Million Grit. I hope today's episode has left you feeling inspired, equipped, and ready to face your own entrepreneurial journey with resolve. Remember, until next time, embrace the struggle, harness your grit, and keep pushing forward. You're stronger than any challenge you face. I'm Julie, and this has been $1 Million Grit.